Hey guys, Brian here with Better Chess Training, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a little break from our Climbing the Ladder series. Wanted to give a little advice or share my experience with improving my analysis and calculation process. I've been doing a few game studies as well as my technical problems and positions for my games, and trying to analyze or observe the way I analyze the positions and variations I had in particular, um, trying to see where I can streamline my analysis, get more efficient. So I have a few examples for you. I hope they'll be helpful for you. But if you enjoy it, please the like button at the end of this video and leave a comment. But let's move on to the
Okay,
positions. Here's our first position from an endgame study. And if you want, go ahead and pause it and take, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes and try to figure out, plan and do some analysis and see if you can come up with the ideas behind the solution, then back it up with your analysis. What I came up with. Okay, so in this position, there's sort of two halves of the board. You can see got the side over here with these pawns, and then got these pawns here. So uh, the idea is the first question you should ask yourself is maybe regarding, your goal is probably over here, and so you just have to see how to stop this, or and if you have to stop it. So what you can do here is, consider what would happen if black were to try to pawns. Okay, and then you can say you'd probably start with g4. Okay, and after g4, you can you ignore that? Well, what is he going to try to do here? And the next move probably be something like either g3, the idea of playing h3, or h3 with the idea of creating a passed pawn. Now, if you're fairly familiar with your basic endgames, you know here that you're going to be able to stop these. Okay, and it's going to make a move here. Just uh, ignore the. I'm just going to make this move here just so I can move the black pieces. You're going to be able to see that you can pretty much ignore these guys. Okay, and I can make here, and again, this, the point is I'm just trying to advance this here. So if you play this, take it, and if he advances it, I play king to f3, which will stop it. Or if he creates a passed pawn, I will be able to stop that as well. So even if he protects it with the king, he can never advance this without me being able to stop it, and then I can move on here with that. Okay, so let's go back to the position. The idea here is that, by the way, a5 is not the solution. I'll show you in a moment why, but I just wanted to make that point that once you can reason that you can stop these pawns no matter what they do, then you can focus all of your analysis on this. And with that in mind, we can take a look here. Obviously, there's only two pawn breaks. Hopefully, you saw that any king move that you make is fairly is not really sufficient. Okay, but you have to, you're again looking at your basic end games here. There's a potential for some type of breakthrough. Obviously, you only have two choices: a5 and c5. So let's take a look at a5. I know I just gave it away that that's not the solution. And of course, the natural move here is that we'll take here with the b pawn. And then if you were considering following up here, you can probably see that course, black shouldn't do this because then you can create a passed pawn this way. But instead, if you try to break with c5, hopefully you saw that black can just play b6. And that's a pattern here, and you'll never be able to create a passed pawn. Okay? Of course, now black has his own passed pawn. So a5 is incorrect. So then you just have to see if c5 is correct. So here we have c5, and there's two captures here, right? Now we've already determined that any of these pawn moves to try to create a passed pawn here, we can stop easily. So pretty much keep that under wraps for now. And so mainly concerned with b takes c5 or d takes c5, and then you can calculate. So if we have b takes c5, then what you can do, you can now push this pawn, create a passed pawn this way. Okay. For example, let's say he moves a couple pieces here, play a6, and again, you are just able to stop this pawn. So he has to capture, and now you've got this passed pawn, which will win because you're going to stop this one, and this one is too far away. Okay, let's go back for c5. Then the other choice here would be b takes c5. And again, now we just have a5 right away. And we're going to create that passed pawn. Now, again, now what if black tries to wait with here? You don't have to calculate too far, but you can see obviously if you take one of these pawns, you're going to create a situation where you're going to be able to be stopped. Okay, try to advance it, for example. This then fairly easy to stop you here, and there's no sacrifices you can make to create a passed pawn. However, there is a move you can make, that is a5. Okay, so after a5, let's say b takes a5, then you have this move b6, and learn this pattern as well. Whenever you have a situation where you can attack the bottom of the pawn chain, then you're going to be able to create a passed pawn. So a5, b takes a5, b6, he takes b6, and then he takes d6. And again, you're going to promote first. And at any point in this sequence that black tries to do anything over here, we already know we can stop that. So hopefully, I think I've covered most of the variations there. But the idea behind this is that you don't have to, your tree of analysis doesn't have to include every single variation. You can shortcut it because you can figure out that on this particular case, the king side is safe. So you can focus all of your analysis on the queen side, and knowing that any of the king side moves are going to be able to stop. Okay, so that was the first position, and just to review the solution, because I kind of went back and forth here, c5 is the correct first move. And let's say he could either try to wait or he could capture, but let's say he tries to wait. Again, this is showing that we can stop this. Then a5 is the next move. B takes a5. Actually, I don't think I showed what happens here. Of course, any move to take the c pawn will be met by a6. Okay, so that is the intended move. That's why black has to capture here first. Then b6. Okay, so let's go on to our next. Okay, here is another endgame study, and I like to use the endgame studies because you need a combination of knowing specific endgame knowledge, which will be useful for you in games, as well as it does force you to make certain calculations. So it's a great way to improve your analysis skills. And again, in order to solve these, sometimes you need to learn how to shortcut some of the analysis so you're not just brute force analyzing a ton of lines. Okay, so take a moment, or actually take about, again, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and try to figure out the general ideas and see if you can come up with a line for a solution. This one's a little trickier than the first one, but you see main ideas behind this. Get it? So try it out and then compare it with my solution. Okay, well, let's take a look at this position here. Um, we can see here that black has a large material advantage. And in these types of cases, especially, if it's a tactical problem or a study, that you're looking to, or you're hoping to draw this position, not necessarily looking for a win. So that's good to know. Second thing you might notice here is that your passed pawn is really your only hope here, okay? Because you can't win with just the bishop. So you have to try to promote this. That's going to be maybe one of your goals here. And then the other aspect here is your own king position. So a lot of times you might think to yourself that, well, the only way I'm going to get out of this alive is to try to get stalemated or some type of perpetual check where it's not going to be able. So those are kind of the main ideas that you're looking at. So typically, when a pawn, advanced pawn is played, you should always examine advancing that pawn and trying to get it to promote. Okay, so that's going to be one of your actually your main candidate. You can almost eliminate any other candidate because if you were to move, for example, let's say you move this bishop away from basically anywhere. Let's see. Let's say you move it here to attack this knight, for example. Well, there's a lot of moves here that would be bad for you. Okay, so for example, even probably the simplest is rook to e5, and even if you take this knight here, then you can see here that black's going to move in for the kill pretty quickly here. You can try delaying it, but white here can even, or I'm sorry, black can look at, well, black can just take, and again, what are you going to do? You have to cover the square. Let's say you just try to wait with the bishop, and then here, I think black can even look at some discoveries. Okay, one, and then knight to f2 check, of course, to Arabian mate. Okay, so with that in mind, and so those are just some quick thoughts that help you realize that you need to look at advancing the d7 as a candidate. It's probably the first one you should look at. Okay, so after that, you realize that the main move that black has is to try to stop this. Of course, he can't go. He needs to stop it in one move. So the only move that does that is rook to e5. So you would have that as the next response, and then you can start to see what the idea is. Now, if you again, if you're looking for some type of stalemate or some type of this bishop, you're going to have to try to get rid of. So one of your ideas here might be bishop to g check. So I saw that fairly quickly. And then, of course, you're going to examine, is there any tactics if I actually advance this? Fortunately, say we promote that, it's fairly easy to see that you're not stalemated here. And because you have this bishop, it can be very difficult to get yourself stalemated. Okay, so that's where if you go back a couple moves, this bishop to g3 check idea hopefully came to you. Okay, because what we can see here is if bishop to g check, king to g3, and then we queen, okay, we promote our pawn, then we can see here that, of course, if he takes it, that's going to be stalemate, right? So can we wait? If we try to move the rook anywhere, then the queen can take it, okay? Let's see here, for example, that he tries to go again, or he can't go here for that discovered attack because he rook's just taken. And let's say he tries to just protect the rook here. Then white's going to get some checks. Of course, with all this material, white is probably not going to win now, but I don't think black's going, or I'm sorry, white's not going to lose. Okay, let's go back to. So with that in mind, bishop to g3 check. King to g3 is probably the most logical move. Otherwise, black's going to lose his rook, and is then there's a real chance of two knights in a king. Okay, but it still might be easy. But again, white's goal here is to draw the game. Okay, but king takes g3 makes a lot of sense. So we need to promote because we know that if he takes it, that's going to stalemate, right? So here, the other piece of information, and you don't have to look at this, so is that these checks. Okay, so the next part here is do you calculate these knight checks, and I think you do to some extent, just to make sure you're not going to get mated. But the thing to know is that you cannot checkmate with just a king and two knights, okay? So unless white purposefully goes into checkmate. So it's uh, that part. Once you know that the rook has to get involved. You can see here, as we saw, that it's probably going to be perpetual check if the rook moves anywhere, try to checkmate the king. Anything other than capturing queen. Okay. So let me just finish this one up. So after this, of course, king forced, and after this check, for example, we go to king to f1, and if we try this check, see the problem is by moving check, we're also giving the king square. And of course, this rook can't go anywhere. If the rook gets off of this file, then we're going to have a bunch of checks on the king, potential forks with all of these pieces, and of course, rook can't check the king because of the queen. So hopefully that was a little tricky. But what I wanted to show you there was that once you get the main idea, so I want you to tackle tactical problems and problems in your own games by trying to search for the ideas behind the position first. Don't just start calculating moves, because a lot of times you're going to waste a lot of time calculating moves that are either irrelevant or it's unnecessary to have a grasp of the position. Okay? Again, I'm not encouraging you not to calculate because obviously you analyze your moves, and calculating is very important. But we also, especially if we're playing in a tournament game, we're doing these rated problems on these chess servers where time is built into that. We want to make sure our is efficient. Okay, for our last position, black to move. As you can see, black is in check. So take a couple minutes and try to get the ideas behind the problem where you start calculating a lot of variations. Okay, and of course calculate as far as you need to justify your solution. Okay, in our final position, I wanted to again demonstrate how we can make our analysis process more efficient with this particular position. And of course, we see that white's bishop is attacking the king. Now, there's only four moves that can get out, which bishop takes, or I'm sorry, king takes h7, king to h8, king to f8, or king to f7. Now, in your analysis process, you should probably calculate or assess the king takes h7 line, partly because you're winning material in that. You want to see if that's safe. And if it's safe, it's probably better than lines, the other moves that don't win material. So that's your first step there, is start with the most promising move. Now, hopefully you noticed that white's queen is pinned. So white's queen, because you might have, before you noticed that, you might have thought, well, if king takes h7, then queen takes g7 mate. So that is not possible. So that would be something to make sure you notice, and doing lots of checkmate problems do that. If you do a lot of these tactics problems, you may have considered these other moves where you don't take the bishop because of that mate. But if you were able to notice that, then you don't have to worry about it. Anyways, so if you take a look at king takes h7, that move, then here white's natural follow-up that you want to calculate the forcing moves first, okay, would be rook to g7 check. Now, white's king only has two legal moves here, and you just need one move to be safe in order to accept this variation too. And you can explore some of the other variations, but at least you know you have one safe move here. So king to h8 or king to h6. Now here, you might start with one, like say king h8, but then as soon as you notice that we have this discovered check with, say, rook to c7 check, then we can stop our analysis there and go to the other option, okay? And what I mean by that is that go back. Now, it's possible that this is fine as well, but let's go back and try the other option to see if it's any better right away, instead of taking a few minutes to try to determine if that rook to c7 check with the discovered check is safe. Okay, so let's take a look here. So king to h6. Now there's only one check here, which is rook to g6. So we should look at that. Okay, and then here we can see we can just take. Now, if we go the other way, again, we only had two legal moves. We go the other way, we're going to be get hit with that check again. So the idea here is that we know that we will be ahead material as long as we can eventually capture this queen, right? Because then we'll be up queen for a rook. So we just have to make sure, and we had just captured this minor piece. We just have to make sure we're not going to get mated. Now, of course, we can, white's not going to be able to check mate here because this rook is hanging. Let's say the rook makes a move, try to find a safe square for him, like rook g7. Well, that just gives us time here to play this check, and after that, we can bring our king down for, or I'm sorry, our queen here to defend. Moves, let's say the king here, one, then there's a lot of things we could even play something like queen to e1 check to play this bishop check. Okay, and then you can see here that white's going to quickly. Okay, just to sum things up, just wanted to show you a few examples today about how you can take complex positions and maybe shortcut your analysis. It does take some practice to know when to do this, and you need to go a little deeper with your analysis. But knowing that you don't need to brute force calculate every single line in order to make a good decision is hopefully helpful for you, especially when you're thinking about tournament games where you only have a limited amount of time on the clock to make your moves. Now, I'm not against calculating and sure that you have very thorough analysis, but again, it's not always necessary to do so. I think sometimes people get bogged down with trying to calculate much when maybe 80% of what they're calculating is irrelevant. So um, we want to make our analysis and our calculating as possible. So a couple tips just to close up. Continue to do those tactical problems. And also, after your games, after especially your long time control games, analyze what you saw during the game. Okay, and then put some notes down, and then see where could you have maybe streamlined your analysis. Maybe there are certain patterns that you could have noticed that would have told you, hey, you know what? I don't need to calculate past this point. I know the results. So part of it is self-awareness. Part of it is practice, again, with tactical problems. And if you're a more intermediate or advanced player with the chess studies. But anyways, wanted to break it up a little bit today. We will be resuming our climbing the ladder series, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. Also, I did want to let you know I am going to be doing some end of the year planning for 2018. So if you are watching this in December of 2008, I have a poll as to, and the question is, what is your biggest chess struggle? So I'm going to put a link to that poll in the description below. So make sure you check that out. And otherwise, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. The goal of better chess training help you improve your chess. I'm on the journey with you. Love to be a part of your journey.